I'm a 30-year-old woman named Caroline, and for the last 10 years, I've been the only single person at every family gathering. Every Christmas, without exception, someone would highlight it. One year, it was a mocking remark about how the only ring I'd ever have would be the one on my phone. Another year, my father decided it would be funny to give me a spinster starter pack, a bathrobe, knitting needles, and a box of herbal tea. The whole family burst into laughter. I managed a forced smile. That was the pattern. My younger sister Ellie is married with 2 children and lives just a short distance from our parents in Pennsylvania. She's the type who shares perfectly organized lunchbox photos and vacation recaps with motivational quotes. My older brother Dylan lives in New York and works in finance. He's rarely involved unless there's food or sports on the table. Among all of us, I'm the only one who moved far away. I live in Boston and work as a graphic designer at a publishing house. For years, every visit home came with tension. Ellie would talk endlessly about her kids and claim parenting was the toughest role imaginable. My mother would casually mention how peaceful the holidays must be for me, and someone, often Ellie, would make a jab like even cereal eventually gets chosen. The family would chuckle. I'd pretend to join in. My love life turned into a repeated punchline they recycled endlessly. I tried confronting it once. I told my mom it bothered me. She dismissed it, saying humor was how we showed affection. When I asked Ellie to stop, she labeled me overly sensitive and accused me of exaggerating. After that, I quit mentioning it. I also stopped bringing anyone home. Ever. The reality was I wasn't single because I couldn't meet someone. I simply refused to expose anyone I cared about to that atmosphere. It felt like inviting them to a table where they'd face ridicule right away. So I kept my relationships discreet, brief, or both. It was simpler. Then 8 months ago, I met Alec. He's 33 and a trauma surgeon. We connected at a design conference. He attended as a guest of a friend presenting on medical user interfaces. I was there professionally. We ended up getting coffee while waiting for our trains, and the conversation never really stopped. What began as light talk grew into constant messages, weekend getaways, and deep nighttime calls. He wasn't merely nice or good-looking. He was stable. I could share work pressures with him, and instead of dismissing them, he'd remember and follow up later. Once he sent flowers to my office the day after a major client presentation. No note, just a smiley face sketched on the receipt in pen. With Alec, everything felt balanced. He valued my career, didn't just put up with it. He honored my self-reliance and never made me feel I had to diminish myself to match his life. I'd often been told I was a lot to manage. Alec called me remarkable. We discussed everything: marriage, finances, future plans, children. We matched from the start. 6 months later, we got engaged. There wasn't a grand gesture. We were sitting on the floor eating takeout, talking about living together, and simply agreed it was the right step to formalize it. I didn't inform my family, not because I was concealing him. I just didn't want him turned into another target for teasing. I needed this to stay ours initially, free from snide remarks or cutting observations. I knew they'd learn eventually. I just wanted to decide the timing and manner. That leads to this year, Christmas at my parents' house. Dylan would fly in from the city, Ellie and her family would already be there, and my parents would prepare the usual holiday roast. The change? This time I wouldn't arrive alone. Alec was scheduled to fly in on the 23rd. I'd already wrapped the presents, meaningful items we selected together. I had my ring box packed, not for display, but because I refused to conceal it any longer. I'd mentally prepared for everything, what I'd accept, what I wouldn't. If anyone joked, I wouldn't brush it aside. If someone minimized the engagement, I wouldn't defend it. I wasn't there to fight. But I also wasn't going to sacrifice my comfort for theirs. Ellie would likely have her photo presentation prepared, Aspen shots, news about her oldest learning Mandarin, perhaps a home project update. I knew the drill. But this time I wouldn't play the supporting role in someone else's show. I was arriving with Alec, not as a prize, not as validation, just as myself, confident, stable, and not seeking approval. This year, when I stepped through that door, I wouldn't be the family's ongoing gag. There'd be no hesitant introductions or lengthy clarifications. Just me, Alec, and a shared understanding that whatever they believed or said couldn't affect what we shared. We reached my parents' house a little past 3 p.m. on Christmas Eve. Light snow had begun falling, the kind that swirls without settling. Alec carried the gifts while I managed the door. Ellie answered it. She held a half-full wine glass, dressed in a beige sweater and pressed jeans. Her gaze shifted from me to Alec, then back. Her smile appeared delayed and incomplete. "You brought someone." She moved aside as if posing a question rather than welcoming us. Alec offered a courteous nod and entered. The living room carried scents of cinnamon and roast beef. The ornaments remained unchanged. The same old wreath from a decade ago, the same stockings with our names in red felt. My mother and father emerged from the kitchen. My mom paused, then greeted us in a slightly elevated tone. My dad examined Alec's face, then his shoes before extending his hand. The handshake was brief. No one commented on me not being alone. For the first time in 10 years, no one teased about my solo arrival. But warmth didn't replace it, only quiet. Dylan showed up around 20 minutes later, dropped his bag, and hugged me. He lifted an eyebrow at Alec, then gave an approving nod. Alec introduced himself. My dad headed back to check the oven. Ellie passed by, refilling her glass silently. We sat for dinner at 6. Roast beef, mashed potatoes, glazed carrots, and canned cranberry sauce. Alec praised the food and inquired about the recipe. My mom muttered something about a magazine she couldn't recall. Ellie interjected with a question about Alec's profession. When he replied trauma surgeon, her eyebrows rose. She followed up, "So you're fine with someone as self-sufficient as Caroline?" Alec stayed composed. He said that was precisely what drew him to me. I didn't wait for others to create room for me. I claimed it. No hesitation, no sarcasm, just a straightforward response. Ellie stayed quiet. After dessert, store-bought pumpkin pie and decaf coffee, I stood and announced we were engaged. No elaborate speech, no ring display, just a calm statement between bites. Dylan spoke first. He offered congratulations, leaning back with a grin. That prompted the others. My mom nodded gradually. My dad mentioned needing more wine. Ellie remained silent. She fixed her eyes on the pie as if it had disappointed her. My mom asked how long we'd been together. Before I could respond, Ellie remarked, "So this is rather quick, isn't it?" I explained we'd dated for 8 months. We'd spent almost every weekend together, covered major topics, and agreed on essentials. It wasn't hasty, just private until now. Ellie tilted her head. "Looks don't last. I hope there's substance beyond that." Alex smiled and agreed he hoped so too. Then he offered Dylan help clearing the table. Talk turned to weather, jobs, and rising flight prices. It all seemed scripted, with lines that didn't quite connect. After dinner, while loading the dishwasher, Dylan took me aside. He said Alec appeared genuine. Then he confessed he hadn't expected me to find someone who could match my pace and still seem relaxed. He was happy to be mistaken. I thanked him and passed him a wet plate. I noticed my mom observing from the hallway. She signaled me over and quietly asked if Alec had any past issues. Her tone lowered on the word. I said no. No previous marriages, no hidden kids. No warnings. She nodded but asked nothing more. She simply left as if verifying an idea that didn't exist. Alec and I went to the guest room around 10. He placed our bags in the closet while I organized clothes for the next day. I offered him a stronger drink, but he declined and sat on the bed's edge. He told me this was familiar. Families like ours probe you. It begins with courteous expressions and leads to subtle maneuvers. He wasn't upset, just perceptive. Then he asked about the extra blanket. I indicated the bottom drawer and switched off the light. I didn't need to clarify anything. I didn't have to protect anyone either. For once, I wasn't caught mediating two sides. Alec remained calm, unshaken, and steady throughout. That night, the outside stillness echoed the house's interior. But for the first time, I wasn't facing it by myself. Christmas morning arrived noisy, hurried, and chaotic as usual. Wrapping paper scattered, endless coffee, and Ellie's youngest circling the table in new dinosaur slippers. Alec came downstairs ready, focused, and carrying neatly wrapped presents. He distributed them individually without ceremony. He gave my dad a hard-to-find cookbook on Pennsylvania Dutch cooking. Dad flipped through it twice, paused at the pickling pages, and noted it recalled his mother's dishes. That was the most authentic reaction I'd seen from him all visit. Alec presented my mom with a candle, a custom soy one whose fragrance complemented the living room's palette. She unwrapped it carefully, called it excessive, then placed it on the mantel without repackaging. That counted as her approval. Ellie opened her husband's gift, a standard spa card. She gave a thumbs up, then eyed her son excitedly unpacking a colorful science set from Alec. She glanced between the gift and Alec, puzzled how he knew her child's interests. Alec joined the kids on the floor and assisted with a Lego city bus. He didn't dominate or impress. He simply followed the guide while they connected pieces. Ellie's husband lingered in the corner, phone and coffee in hand, barely engaged. My mother passed by once to refill Alec's cup unprompted. She returned shortly with a muffin, then another serving. She laughed heartily when he joked about the Lego figures enjoying superior public transit than most cities. It didn't seem like genuine warming. More like adjustment, as if she'd misjudged him and was recalibrating. During brunch, conversation stayed subdued until Ellie commented, "Guess holding out until 30 paid off." No one laughed. Dylan shifted topics by inquiring about Alec's hospital hours. My dad continued, questioning medical school, residency demands, and trauma rotations. That sustained normal discussion for a time. But just as it seemed balanced, my dad added, "Just didn't think someone like you would pick our Caroline. No offense." Alex smiled and replied, "I got lucky." No delay, no edge. Just natural and complete. Later, I spoke privately with my dad while refilling drinks and suggested he could simply offer congratulations next time. He nodded and offered to cut the pie, as if compensating. In the kitchen, while rinsing plates, I overheard my mom quietly telling Ellie that men like that rarely stay. Ellie responded neutrally without amusement or irritation. Well, he proposed, so I guess she managed something correctly. She didn't glance over. She grabbed a cookie and returned to the living room. I stayed silent. I didn't need to speak. That exchange revealed their position clearly, and for the first time I didn't feel compelled to repair or reply. At lunch, Alec recounted a residency anecdote, a mild tale about a hospital turkey distribution, a mistaken address, and a neighborhood potluck that followed. It was humorous, concise, and drew everyone in. Even my dad laughed. Dylan sought more details. My mom asked about the location. Ellie didn't interrupt or redirect. I relaxed and listened. No one overshadowed me. No one focused on me. For once, I wasn't portrayed as an issue or a challenge. No references to my single status, my habits, or my career being incompatible with family. That night, I settled under the throw in the guest room. Alec read on his phone nearby. The house grew quiet. I realized the long-standing joke that defined me yearly had faded. Not due to their growth, not from newfound respect, but because Alec's presence made them pause. He wasn't bold or showy, but he didn't yield either. And because of that, for the first time in 10 years, I didn't have to either. Alec and I strolled the neighborhood the following morning. Snow hadn't accumulated, but clouds hung low and streets were peaceful. We passed homes with wreaths and yard reindeer. Alec noted some things felt mismatched. Not extreme, just slightly off balance. I explained that family warmth often carried expectations. He didn't press. Upon returning, Ellie was alone in the kitchen, aggressively chopping celery. She looked up and asked if this visit was some performance for me, like I'd brought Alec to demonstrate a point. I said no, he's my fiancé, that's it. If I'd wanted drama, I could have announced louder. She persisted, claimed I always had advantages. I gained notice effortlessly. Meanwhile, she worked hard for recognition. Marriage, children. The home, none brought praise, but I arrive with a partner and everyone quiets and observes. I didn't respond. Nothing I said would prevent escalation, she continued. Said our parents made my dating life the main focus. Every split was dramatic, every date newsworthy. Her wedding barely rated an album. She offered no apology. Just attributed past remarks to accumulated resentment. I didn't engage. I poured coffee, nodded, and left. Alec glanced up when I returned but asked nothing. He sensed it. Soon after, my mom returned and casually asked Alec to help carve the turkey. That was unprecedented. My dad never allowed others near the knife, not even Dylan. Alec agreed readily. He followed her as if routine. I observed from the hall. She handed him the carving tools like passing responsibility. My dad watched aside without intervening. The change was understated but noticeable. They were adapting, not embracing, not fully welcoming, just repositioning. Dylan walked by and said he couldn't remember Mom behaving that way before. He joked Alec had figured out the family in under 48 hours. At dinner, the surface felt calmer. No sharp comments, no teasing. But when Alec passed potatoes, my mom asked how he afforded such considerate gifts. She smiled, but her tone revealed unease, not interest. Alec stayed steady. He said, "I pay attention when Caroline describes those she cares about." Then he handed bread to Dylan without averting his gaze. Silence fell briefly. No one pursued it. And for once I didn't hurry to break it. I allowed it to linger, around 4 p.m. The day after Christmas, I entered the kitchen amid rosemary chicken scents and my mother humming as if starring in a show. I spotted 2 extra settings on the table. Before inquiring, she mentioned Angela and her husband were joining for dinner. No heads up, no details, just inserted casually. Angela wasn't merely a friend. Growing up, she was the exemplary girl whose mother was close to mine. Piano performances, neat writing, awards everywhere. Each visit my mom began with, "You know what Angela's up to now," and listed achievements I never requested. They arrived after 5. Angela entered in a fitted coat and impractical heels for snow. She noticed my ring, smiled, and said it was daintier than anticipated. Her husband followed with a strained expression, surveying the space. Dinner began politely. Until Angela's husband asked Alec if pairing with someone as independent as me complicated balance. Alec replied evenly that we'd never competed because we progressed together. He passed bread seamlessly. Angela pressed, inquiring about hospital demands and if it allowed presence in a relationship like ours. She implied without naming it, but the meaning lingered. Ellie unexpectedly said nothing. She didn't endorse or join, just observed. After several pointed queries, it dawned on me, Angela wasn't random. My mom had summoned her hoping her husband would outshine Alec. It was a subtle contest, with us as surprise participants. Alec didn't engage the bait. He smiled, answered briefly, stayed non-defensive. Angela circled but scored no points. When she asked how I'd secured someone like him, I replied, mutual respect. Simple, really. Angela's face stayed composed, but she requested her coat soon after, citing an early departure. She offered minimal farewell, and her husband left his drink unfinished. After they departed, my mom suggested Angela was merely caught off guard. Then she added we appeared, mismatched together, as if retracting an unspoken thought. I stated firmly this was the final ambush. She blinked, lips parted, but didn't contest. Dylan, with wine in hand, clapped and said, "About time." Everyone laughed along unusually. That evening, Alec praised my composure. I never provided the confrontation sought. He noted it required greater strength than debating. We sat on the couch, shared the final pie slice, and spoke little more. When I retired, I didn't sense victory, just firmness, as if I'd held steady without compromise. The morning after Angela's visit, the house atmosphere shifted. Not joyful, but eased. No corner whispers or feigned ignorance. The earlier strain persisted, but felt diluted, lacking force. My mom packed holiday items while my dad removed porch lights. Ellie approached the tree with a bin and offered help unprompted. She joined me wrapping ornaments and untangling strings. We worked silently a while before Ellie noted she might have been overly critical before. Not as apology, but acknowledgement. I said no need for full reconciliation. Civility would suffice. She agreed and continued sorting. No emotional embrace, no intense gaze, no background score, just us organizing decorations without conflict, and that felt sufficient. Over lunch, my mom remarked they hadn't anticipated such significant news from me. She said it lightly, as if justifying prior behavior. My dad, blending awkwardness and sincerity, invited Alec to a spring fishing outing with him and Dylan. Alec accepted, schedule permitting. Dylan raised an eyebrow silently. They hadn't apologized. No admissions, yet shifts occurred. My mom dropped forced expressions. She observed quietly. My dad avoided commitment jokes or busyness excuses. No warmth filled the space, but rejection had faded. The environment had altered. Later, drying dishes, my mom approached and requested another ring look, this time without challenge, just interest. I removed it and gave it over. She examined it closely under the light, nodded, and returned it wordlessly. While cleaning the counter, she asked about next year's Christmas cards, not literally about stationery. It signaled lasting commitment. I said likely. That sufficed. Alec departed that evening. He faced an early shift in New York and needed to leave before dark. We carried his bag to the car together. No one trailed outside. He promised to meet on the 28th as arranged. We shared a brief private kiss. Turning back, I saw my mom at the window. She didn't wave or grin, just watched. Hours later, packing my final bag, she handed me road pie in a container. She'd only done that for Ellie before. I packed deliberately. No one hurried me. Dylan passed, bag over shoulder, and said next year we'd reserve a proper seat for Alec, not impromptu. I nodded and shut my bag. I drove away without reminders or traffic queries. The porch light remained, curtains still. On the drive, it struck me. No one called me single. No one pressed about settling. No one made me the target. They didn't embrace Alec at my request. They didn't celebrate openly, but they didn't diminish me either. I departed not as warning story, not as underachiever, not as the pitied one. This time on my terms, not their favorite, perhaps, but certainly not their joke. I returned to New York on the 27th evening. Alec met me at the station with coffee and simple grocery flowers. We drove mostly quiet, city lights reflecting, trips residue lingering. The next morning, I unpacked Mom's pie into Alec's fridge. He chuckled, asking if I'd eat it or keep it as heirloom. I said undecided. That afternoon, we walked Central Park, chilly yet sunny. Alec paused and asked about setting a date, not the wedding, but sharing with his family. I agreed. We chose February, post his sister's birthday. At his place, I saw wedding magazines stacked. He mentioned a colleague's gift upon hearing of the engagement. I opened one, spotting circled sections on venues, guests, and family talks. We ordered Thai and started a movie we didn't finish. Near midnight, my phone alerted, family group chat. My dad shared a photo of fishing gear for spring cleaning. Ellie added, "He's really joining you?" I replied with thumbs up, nothing more. The next day, I sent Mom a New Year's card. Simple note and park photo of us. A week later, her card arrived. Short handwritten line, "You two looked peaceful." By mid-January, Alec's parents hosted me for dinner. Pleasant and ordinary. His mom overserved. Dad inquired about work. No subtle jabs on timing, age, or independence. Back home, I began boxing items. We hadn't formally announced moving in, but closet space cleared and my name added to lease. It progressed quietly, naturally, without fanfare. Dylan texted asking if Alec remained. I sent a photo of him repairing my sink, very much. He replied, good. About time this family improved, no disputes, no indirect hits, just progress, straightforward, advancing, and overdue.